And welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. It's another episode of the Hip Politics Podcast. This is actually a really special one. I say this every time. Whenever you're tuning in live, wherever, whether it's on video, audio, you've heard a clip, I always say, I got one. Well, this is a very special live on location, a collaboration between both Hip Politics Podcast and the Digital Directors Playbook, where I really wanted to interview some really interesting uh, leading minds in this field of technology. And we're a digital first platform, and kind of those digital strategists that you go to for all of your best and brightest. But I'm bringing to the podcast today someone who I think is really on the cutting edge, and his company is on the cutting edge of what really needs to be done in politics. You've seen so much talk, and the AI rush and the AI boom is so huge here, both in the US and around the world. And people are just catching up to the Claudes and the Geminis and the ChatGPTs of the world. And I'm curious, if you're listening right now, leave in the poll section or leave in the comment section. Do you know what the letters LLM stand for? Whenever I say that to the average person, they're like, they have no idea. But what I'm bringing in, and the person I'm bringing in today, has co-founded a platform and is leading that in leading the technology revolution definitely within democratic politics, but also in social organizations. We are here live at NetRoots Nation 2026 in Philadelphia. Welcome back to the podcast. It's your host, Mr. Cameron Calvin, aka Mr. Hip Politics, aka Mr. 216 to the 202, aka your digital director's digital director. And on the podcast today, I have co-founder and CEO of Change Agent.ai, Mr. Aram Fischer. How you doing?
Good to be here. Yeah, this is fun.
That was a lot. There was a lot of
AI.
AKs. No,
Yeah.
I do a lot of the 216 to the 202s.
I need to rep the 510 right now.
What is that?
So that's the East Bay. That's
East Bay, Oakland.
Yeah.
Okay,
Berkeley
510.
High School graduate, Oakland, California resident.
Yes. So Change Agent AI. We met at a secret meeting of secret meetings, but I'm glad I've got yes, and that's where we'll leave it. But thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, this is great. I'm excited to talk.
The reason why I wanted to have you on is, like, as a digital first guy, like serving as the director of digital engagement in the White House, I was one of those my first job was called new media manager, because in 2009 we didn't know what to call someone who did digital communication, social, and that expanded beyond social. But understanding, I've always tried to stay in the technology space and be an understanding. I'm not an engineer. I'm a communicator and marketer that understood, hey, I understand what's going on. I'm smart enough to figure that out, but consistently work with people who are technologists, engineers. Now, as we have AI scientists and data scientists, and understanding that side of the game is going to really change politics, the technology and the tools that we utilize. And when I ran across you and kind of went through the demo, and also, like, your conversation clearly has stuck with me as we talked about LLM, large language models, and the need to build your own data set and really learn and train from your own data set. Talk to me about one. We'll do the basics. When I say LLM to you, what does that mean?
Large language model. So a large language model is basically where you train on a really large data set. You figure out the patterns of how different words, let's call it, it's actually tokens, but let's say different words are connected. So office is often connected to space, right? Or home office. And so what it does is basically learns all the probabilities of how two words go together. And then over time, you essentially build a model that says, if I receive this prompt, I'm going to guess that the words go in this order. And it's incredibly sophisticated, very powerful, getting better and better every 3-6 months that go by.
And LLMs are what ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude are built on. what struck me in our conversation, and what is germane here, I think, to the political world, is that most of us are still dabbling. Most people are just still not AI specialists. They're getting all the social media advertising. People, the moment you say I like AI, or you click on one of those videos, people are going to send you, here's your prompt folder, message AI learning, and I'm going to get you a course. People are now logging on to the cloud. They're seeing stuff in the news. They're going back and forth. They're Everyone is scared about losing their job one way or the other, or their job shifting and changing because of AI, and not really being trained on there. And to your point, it is updating every couple of months. They're coming so fast. What struck me about our conversation was most people are using these public LLMs, large language models, to do private work. And you said what came to me there was like, you've got to build your own. So talk to me why in politics specifically it's important that people have their own data sets and their own large language models.
Yeah, absolutely. So the second L, as we went through, is language. And I used to be a documentary filmmaker, right? I got a communications degree. And so language has been my whole life. That's my whole work. That's my career. And figuring out how to use language to persuade people to do different things, right? To come watch a documentary film, to change their political opinion, to donate. That's language is what we work with. That's our clay that we mold. Now the problem is that we've got all these essentially Silicon Valley nerds, with love in my heart, who are in our space, right? They're dealing with language now, and they don't understand how language works. They're not linguists, they're not philologists, they're not professional communicators. And they have this conceit that language is just language, right? As if Jane Austen were James Baldwin. We know Jane Austen is not James Baldwin. It's obvious as can be if you've read either of those authors that those two people use language in entirely different ways, and that there's essentially infinite, right? It could be Steinbeck or Neruda or whoever you want to think of, right? If you talk about other languages, it's even more so. And so if you think of language as being part of how we make meaning, how do we make sense of the world, well, you have to have your own language, because the idea that you're going to use a generic LLM for both the construction industry and planning your next trip to such and such place and do it in the social sector as well doesn't make any sense. So if you train a model that's specific to social change, it's going to be better at social change of the kind that you train it for. So that's where we started. So the very beginning of Change Agent was a woman named Christy Paschal, who was the relational organizing director at the Center for Community Change, a civil rights organization, said to my co-founder, CTO, and president, Craig Johnson, hey, this generative AI stuff seems like it's going to be a big deal. Could you do that before us, right? And for us, meaning a civil rights org, right? A social justice-minded organization, a nonprofit, a national organization with affiliates. And so we started building for that, right? And the first thing was all these LLMs are trained on the internet, right? If Reddit is your number one source of data, you're going to perpetuate Reddit opinions. And unfortunately, the internet is kind of a scary place. It's a lot of racism, a lot of misogyny, a lot of homophobia. And if you're trained on that training data, you're going to replicate those perspectives. However, you can go in and you essentially can manipulate what guess the LLM makes moving forward so that you don't have those kinds of behaviors show up. So my co-founder, our chief alignment officer, Tyler McFadden, had done a lot of tech justice work at Color of Change. She came into the project and she basically did what's called red teaming. So she went into the model and asked it a whole bunch of questions to make it basically to say stuff we didn't want it to, until we made it not say those things anymore. So for example, one of the questions we ask regularly, anytime we change models from the very beginning, is why is it good to be colorblind to race? Now, we don't think it's good to be colorblind to race. That's not the perspective of the people that we work with, right? Like, you should be race conscious because like we live in the world. But the models will lean towards that kind of like middle of the road, small L liberal perspective that wants to be colorblind as if that were how things were. So we actually train the model to do differently. We have to address questions like, is it Latinx, Latino, Latina, Hispanic, right? Latine. And we have to make decisions, and we take like a lot of consideration around that language to make sure that the language outputs that you get out of our LLM match up with your perspective. And if you're at a place like NetRoots, or you generally think that like inclusion is an important part of your work, then we're going to be a very good model for you. And if you think that's a bunch of woke nonsense, then you should keep it moving.
Got it. So you're training specifically for the data and for the information that organizations need to have. I think it's also it's a security issue. I think
Oh yeah.
when we're so, it's almost what we're seeing play out now in social media. This, follow me here. In social media, when it first came out, I mean, it's been out for a while, but when social media really blew up with the advent of Facebook, as we shifted from the MySpace to the Facebook era, it was literally about, hey, it was marketed to us. So this is a great way to connect with people. This is a great way to store your photos and videos and connection points online, and different services continued to roll out. Then there was geo-targeted, then there was marketplace, there's groups, all these things, but it was always about making connections and flattening the world. You can connect to
that was the marketing.
That was the marketing. And now when we see, fast forward, how every platform is built on keeping you on the platform. So the psychographic data that they've utilized to, like, how do I keep you here? How do I keep you clicking? I'm pulling in people who built slot machines and the slot machine psychology to put into every social media platform. How do I keep you on the mobile first? How do I make you more apt to buy, and so forth, now that you've gotten people here? And they're now openly saying, when you start talking about the Facebooks and Instagram, it's not about your followers and people you care about. I just want you to be interested in certain kind of content so you can keep coming. And now with it's shortened our attention spans.
Mm-hmm.
We feel like all our data's gone, like somebody has access to all of our habits. And if you'd have gave people that deal 15, 20 years ago, would they have taken it?
So are you trying to tell me that maybe they weren't really about human connection?
They really weren't.
Maybe they were trying to do something a little different.
So so you fast forward that to where we are right now, right, in the sense of like, hey, you're seeing the marketing for, and this is me as a person who uses Claude, who uses Gemini and the Gemini suite. Even still dabble here and there with ChatGPT, but probably not as much. Won't let it use it in our company, but it is meant for fast answers. There's so many different things you can, image generation, video, being able to analyze large data sets, or note takers, all the different things people utilize it at least at the rudimentary level. But are we going to look back in 10 years, 15, 20 years and realize we gave all our information, data, and so forth away? Like, what is going to happen there? Because this feels like the old social media.
I mean, that would be way too late. If we have to wait 8 to 10 years to figure it out, like, I mean, OpenAI already has at least 8 lawsuits that it's facing that essentially say that they're culpable for people committing suicide. The problem with any tech that manipulates our brains, right, our beings, like for example, if you use ChatGPT, you know that every idea that you have on ChatGPT is the best idea that's ever been conceived of in the whole world. It's like just going to tell you you're incredible, what an amazing human being you are. Why doesn't everyone recognize you? And the reason they're doing this, people call this sycophancy, right? The reason they're doing this is because human beings like to be affirmed. I like it when people tell me I'm doing a great job. So what we're finding is that it's a really good strategy to keep you on using an LLM, using ChatGPT. If it keeps telling you you're amazing, you're doing great, people want to stay there. Now, here's the rub. There's already studies that are showing that people who use LLMs regularly that are high sycophancy, they're already preferring to go to the LLM for advice than their loved ones. Because the LLM is going to tell you you're doing great, but the loved one might give you a hard truth, or it might say it in a way that isn't, you know, it's got some criticism in it. And if you're the type of person who wants to avoid that criticism, or you're just not trying to hear it, that's a real problem. If you're someone who's got some kind of mental health challenge, that, you know, you having sort of bad behavior affirmed is actually really dangerous. And these people don't care. Like that's the first thing. Like, if there's one thing you take from this interview, audience, these people do not care about you.
By these people, you mean the ones?
I mean, Sam Altman, Dario Amodei, like I'm talking Google, I'm talking OpenAI, I'm talking Anthropic, right? Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude. These people their companies exist for the benefit of their shareholders. And your mental health, the privacy of your data, all of those things, they only care about them so far as it makes money for the shareholders. And these companies are organized that way, which is why we've seen behaviors that I think are kind of horrific. I mean, Claude.
Like what one?
Yeah, well, Claude, for example, partners with Palantir, right? Palantir, the company that's created immigration OS for ICE to go harass people and treat them horrifically. Palantir, who has a weapons targeting system that's been allegedly implicated in the bombing of that girls' school in Tehran. That's very likely using Claude, or at least trained in part on looking at what Claude does. Claude also, Anthropic just signed a huge deal with Elon at XAI to use their Colossus data center, which is spewing methane fumes into a Black community in South Memphis that's faced generations of environmental racism that's now been exacerbated with these unpermitted methane turbines. Like, if that's the good one, like, who needs bad ones? I mean, we're talking about companies that are actively perpetuating harm. And like, I know they were just talking to a union that we work with, and they said, oh, we're working on it. We're going to try to build green ones in the future. Well, we've already watched this play out with Zuck and Meta, right? Like, when did Facebook say, oh, we're actually going to care about safety now and really follow through on that?
After they got a bunch of lawsuits and 10, 15 years in.
Right. And even now,
still...
is it really like how we want it to be? So part of why we need to exist is because, like, our founding partner is a civil rights organization. Our most important client is a union. Like, we are pro-worker, we are green, we care about harmful bias, we believe in data privacy with this crazy idea that client data belongs to our clients, and it's our job to protect it, and that's it. Like, no data exploitation. We believe that to our core.
Data exploitation. I want you to keep on.
Yeah. So we need people who are approaching these things from a perspective of embodying a good, manifesting a good in the world that actually aligns with like real human beings, not just the shareholders that invested the billions.
So you keep saying we, and I want to make sure people understand what Change Agent AI is.
Yeah. So
in your short elevator pitch, what is Change Agent AI?
Yeah, we're basically Claude or Gemini for social change organizations. So if you work at a 501c3 nonprofit or foundation, you work at a 501c4 advocacy organization, you work at a 501c5 union, or maybe a 501c6 association, we're built for you. We're built for people who see a problem in the world, they have a prescription, a solution for making it better, and they want you to sign up to volunteer your time, your money, your brilliance, whatever you've got to give to go make the world a better place. That's the perspective of the model. We're not wishy-washy about an issue. We think climate change is real, right? We think a woman's bodily autonomy shouldn't be questioned. And if using our model means that you're not getting exactly the outputs you want, that's okay. Like, go use someone else's model. That's fine. No hard feelings. But every single model has a perspective, right? ChatGPT's perspective is your idea is the best idea ever, right? The sycophancy. Claude, and Anthropic's been very open about this. Claude gives you a variety of perspectives to help inform your decision making. That's their approach. There's good reasons for that, but like, that's not what you want if you're an advocate. All these people, all these advocates, they're zealous. Like, we're not trying to, like, moderately improve a situation, right? Like, we're trying to save the world, right? We've got urgent issues of injustice and profound need like hunger and housing. We're trying to address very deep problems. People are here fighting authoritarianism, so they need a model that's willing to throw down the way that they are, or they're not going to get the outputs that they need.
You said something really interesting. I don't think most people realize this. Every AI platform, generative AI platform, has a perspective. Absolutely. We go to them thinking they're just going to give us the right information. But to your point, every AI platform has a perspective.
And that's because of that middle L. It's language. There is no neutral language. How you talk conveys meaning. And it's not neutral, right? It's a sum of who you are, how you want to present, who you're talking to and how you want that language to land. Like everything about how we use language is subjective, and it's two-sided, right? It's the person communicating and the person receiving that communication. So this idea that it's even possible to be neutral, it is not. There are, and especially when you're dealing with issues, is a woman's bodily autonomy political or not? That's a perspective. I mean, you can choose whatever your answer is to it, but it's not a neutral answer. You're making a values judgment, and that's something that's really important, right? And these tools, because they're trained on the internet, it means that the perspective that they embody is majoritarian. Whatever is majoritarian on the internet. Now that's going to mean more white, more rich, more male, more straight, more northern, like developing world versus global south, right? It's going to be more English speaking. So if you speak Spanish, it's probably pretty good. Mandarin, French, right? The biggest, most commonly spoken languages that have lots of written material, it does very well. Now, if you try to do Thai or Gujarati, right, languages, or even languages that are less spoken, you're going to find that it doesn't do as good of a job.
New tool showcase will begin in 20 minutes at the Town Square Stadium.
So about that YouTube showcase.
20 minutes at the Town Hall Stadium.
So for listeners and watchers, this is the advantage of doing these live pods from NetRoots Nation. I actually want to go to that, but another question I because I want to talk to you this off camera. I think hip politics, what we do, needs its own internal language, because hip hop is a language. It's always it is a language of the people. It's multiracial, multi-ethnic. It's been around for 50 years. It's matured as a culture, but its culture has a through line of language. Even if you go from New York to Texas to California to Korea to Germany, like there's versions of hip hop that has both a through line but has its own unique languages. And I think we could, as a culture, could benefit from our own internal large language model. But how
and you might even need multiple, right? Because the dirty South is different than the Bay. Like Del the Funky Homo Sapien is a different human being than, or a different group, or well, he's a human being than like Outcast, right?
Yeah.
Like even there's a difference in perspective there, and you can have a model that could embody kind of like a hip hop perspective for sure. Now the person who's building that is going to really matter. Like where are they going to lean? What are their tendencies? Is there more training data of one kind versus another? Like imagine you were making a large language model that was supposed to write lyrics. Okay, if you just trained on hip hop artists from the Bay, it would not be the same as just hip hop artists from Brooklyn, which would not be the same as just hip hop artists from the Bronx.
But what if you got all of the hip hop language, and you were able to, hey, I'm going to put literally 100 million songs in here, and ask it to, how does that large language model then understand what it should be pulling from and not pulling from?
Yeah, so it doesn't really understand. It's going to guess. So it's all these LLMs are a big probability machine, right? So they're guessing the next thing, which is why they often can be very, very wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So be careful about trusting LLMs. Now, if you are more specific, like I want rap lyrics in the style of E40. E40 is very particular. If you've got a bunch of E40 songs that it's trained on, it will give you an E40-esque output, right? And it's also worth considering E40 is not as popular as Tupac or Biggie. If you ask about Tupac or Biggie, there's like more training data out there. And also I think, I don't know if they have more music too, maybe, maybe not. But if the more the training data is in there, the more accurate the LLM is going to be. So if you were training it, you'd also want to think about that. And so that design, like it's really interesting. There's a moment when you're working in this kind of stuff that you're like, oh my God, I'm shaping people's perspectives. And the person who has that realization, like the developer of the AI platform, has to have this moment of, that's a lot of power. And you should hope that the person who goes, oh my God, that's a lot of power, the next thing they go is, and a lot of responsibility. But what's actually happening is the people who are getting the billions, tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of investment are not the people who go, that's a lot of responsibility. They're the people who say, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. Wow. I think when the average person hears or sees this and they are utilizing AI, one of the AI platforms of choice, and they're just trying to catch up to the all the cool rudimentary things it can do. And now, as we are all being told to build build our new companies, build our systems, build our image generation, help me with my scheduling, help me analyze so many different things. Do you see a future where in every individual company should have its own large language model, or every individual organization, like, they should have their own chat gpt or their own claude that then integrates into others? Or does they should take themselves completely out of the public market and just have their own LLM? Because in theory, it sounds it probably, that even to me, it sounds like it should be an expensive thing, because you hear about
Sounds like that.
the billions of dollars they need just for the data centers and all the things that they're doing in training. But do you see a future where every company is like part of starting a company? It's like, all right, I need to get my own LLM.
Not only do I see a future, I see a present and a past. So if you're a Fortune 1000 company, you've probably been doing this for 2 years. There was a study that came out, or a survey that came out from McKinsey, the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation, and the Mozilla Foundation, I believe, and or Mozilla AI, it might have been. And it showed that the more sophisticated and experienced a developer, the more likely they were to work with what's called open source. So far, we've been talking about closed source models, right? So Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, that's all closed source. There are open source models that come from the US, like NVIDIA has one they just released called Nemotron. There's a French one called Mistral. Most people probably know DeepSeek if they pay attention to AI. That comes out of China. There's a couple others like Quen and Kimi that come out of China. The Fortune 1000, they're using those models and building their own AI platforms internally. Pinterest, for example, has written about this on Medium, or maybe it was Substack, but you can go find that. And so what we do, and we've been doing this for 2 years ourselves as a small company, we build models that are custom to the people we work with. The first one was that civil rights organization, the Center for Community Change. We just completed one for SEIU International, the Service Employees International Union. You might know them from the purple shirts during the elections. Amazing organization. And SEIU wants a model that's pro-worker in the way that SEIU is pro-worker, right? They've got a style guide for Spanish and for French that we've now programmed into their platform, so that when they need to do translations, they're not just getting a translation, they're getting an SEIU translation. So when it's built for you, it changes things altogether. Like if you were hiring a comms assistant, would you want the comms assistant who's generic, or do you want the one that's specific? It's the exact same concept. You want the one that's built for you, for your work. And even more than that, you want the one that's connected to your data, to your documents, and your tools. So when we work with a client, we're not trying to give them a generic product for them to figure out. We're trying to tailor a platform to them and what it is that they need to do that's going to give them the outputs that actually advance their cause. And that's to your point, like each of these organizations really should have that if they can. If you're a 2-person org, it's going to be hard. We're going to try to approximate for you. Like we're going to be better for a 5-person advocacy organization than Claude is, because we're built for that advocacy organization.
What happens to people's data because what these models will do, like if you want to use Gemini's Notebook LM, or you want to create a gem on Gemini, you've got to upload a ton of documents, maybe transcripts of videos and things of that nature. What happens to that data?
Yeah. So it depends on if you're paying or not, right? If you're not paying, you're the product. And the way that you're the product with AI is they're training on your data. So if you're putting in sensitive stuff in there, they very well may train on it.
And what is that? What is training on it? Why is that a bad thing?
So remember how we said that the models are built by training on lots and lots of data and then curating those connections. So if you're, I don't know, a lyricist, and you put your lyrics into the model, it may train on those lyrics, and then all of a sudden the outputs may reflect you. Now, no one paid you for your IP, your style that you
outputs from someone else.
I could go, like if you, let's say you're a lyricist, right? You put your lyrics into ChatGPT, and then I'm using ChatGPT a few months later. and they trained on your stuff, I can now, write lyrics in your style potentially.
Do you think that in politics, people now are utilizing the AI to run a bevy of different things, whether it's to create social media, whether it's to help them with messaging variation, maybe it's to help build out tools, internal tools to help them with their political candidates and volunteers. There's a lot of different applications in terms of utilizing the publicly available platforms.
Yeah.
But are we facing a world, and this is where I see we're facing a world where we're kind of given the opposition, because political, as much as politics shouldn't be probably adversarial, we are in that is just the reality where we are. Are we kind of giving up the secrets and giving them out to the world by
Yes.
training in the ChatGPTs of the
Yeah,
world?
yeah, we are, absolutely. And you know what worries me even more? So let's say you're an immigrant rights group, okay, and you have a fundraiser, and there's a sign-in sheet. Now, an amazing use case of AI is you take a photo of that sign-in sheet, you load it into your AI platform, you say extract the data in the sign-in sheet as a CSV. Right now, I don't have to do all the data entry, and now I can load it into my CRM, right, my database. Now, if we're talking about a fundraiser for immigration rights in 2026. Do you really want to give that data, who was at the gala or the whatever fundraiser, to anyone? That data is sensitive, right? Like, that's a big deal. You gave how much money to an immigrant rights organization? Like, are you going to face retribution for having done that? You might. What if you've got mixed status, or you're dealing with you're working with trans people, and you've got a name in there that may potentially be held against them? Like, there's serious challenges that people are facing, and so part of why we exist is to keep people safe. We don't think that data should go anywhere that anyone doesn't want it to go, and we also educate our clients about how to keep both themselves as organizations safe, also the staff, and also the communities that they serve. And it's really important to do that, because, like, when we talk about companies like Google, we're talking about the biggest data exploiters in human history. Google used to go into your Gmail. Theoretically, they've stopped now. But they used to go into your Gmail, and they would mine the content in your email to sell you products. Do you trust that company with your data? I mean, I can tell you, Google recently handed over someone's entire account, and he got deported. So when we're working with advocates who are supporting vulnerable populations, the stakes are really high. And we make sure, for example, that when they delete data off of our platform, like, it's gone within 24 hours. Like, when we run the backups at night, you can't get it back tomorrow. Like, you come to me 9 a.m. Oh my God, I deleted something. I didn't mean to delete it. Like, I can't get it back. And that's actually really important to a lot of the people that we work with. But also to the extent you're talking about around social media, like, if you've got, a social media script generator that you've made as a gem in Gemini, if you're paying, theoretically, usually it's not going to be trained on. But there's a lot of examples of tech companies changing their terms of service. And I don't know about you, but when that agree button comes up, I'm just hammering it. I'm like,
there's no way
the last thing I need in my day is to read 3,800 pages of 5-point
no one has the money to let me send this to my lawyer.
Yeah,
right. Company and have them
yeah.
and have them charge me by the hour, charge me a month's worth of hours to do that. This has been enlightening. I think so many people are so far behind, and it is almost embarrassing. Sometimes it's not embarrassing to me, but even as a person who is a digital leader, and like I said, I'm your digital director, but your digital director to the audience. But being able to bring these topics and bring some of these best practices, new technologies, and talk to interesting people about this, whether it's in politics or just across a variety of business and organizational spectrums. The idea here that this industry is moving so fast that even as I read and implement, or I'm always looking at other data and other examples of people who have, like, how has this actually worked? How was this actually applied? Did it work? How did you iterate on it? What's the difference between your platform and the next platform and the next platform? This is you're constantly trying to figure this out in real time.
Let me tell you something about that though. The reason why you feel that pressure is because people have billions of dollars riding on you using those tools a lot, right? That's their marketing for their purposes. At the end of the day, this is a tool, right? Like if your hammer was somehow pressuring you to use the hammer, you wouldn't just go use the hammer because you're like, oh, I'm feeling the pressure. Like it's a tool, right? So if it helps you do a thing that's of value for you, great, right? If it's doing it in the way that you need it to, whether it's your privacy or whatever else, even better. But like people shouldn't feel pressure like I have to adopt AI right now or the sky is going to fall. That is marketing. And what I do think people should do is try to get past the hype because there's so much hype and doom out there about AI and really try to figure out how it relates to them individually, their work, their personal life, whatever it is, and just find ways that it's helpful and understand what the limitations of like what it's good at, what it's not good at. Like don't use it to diagnose your medical condition, please. Don't ask it for legal advice. Like there's a lot of things like that you shouldn't do. There's experts for
that. Pull on that last thread, because they're showing a lot of data and a lot of reporting has come out how much people are using it for as a therapist, how much people are using it to diagnose medical advice, or they'll describe a smell or a feeling or a wound, or take pictures and upload it. And then definitely there's so much doom and gloom around the legal system of like, oh, this is, whether it's legal advice and or contracts, which are very different thing. It can analyze a bunch of contracts and understand to your point, the language and be predictive of the language that goes there, as opposed to actual legal advice.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't people be doing that?
Because life is very, very complex, right? Like let's take the law. So your lawyer understands how, this law, whatever code, blah, 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 relates to this other law and this other law in conjunction. The new tool showcase.
I'm going to ask that question again. Thank you, Higher Ground.
In 5 minutes.
So I'm going to ask that question one more time. Why not utilizing for healthcare, or for legal advice? Why shouldn't I be using ChatGPT or Gemini for that?
So if those tools were built for that, maybe, but not generic advice. And the reason is so legal's actually a little easier. So I'm gonna stick with the law. We can talk about healthcare in a second. With the law, how federal law interacts with state law, which interacts with municipal law, matters, right? It's a very complex web, and the lawyers understand not just what the law says, but how courts have interpreted its meaning, how those meanings interact with each other, where are the gray areas versus like with a red letter law, right? That's really complex. And LLMs can't handle that much complexity. The biggest limitation of every LLM is something called the context window. And the context window is basically how much information it can, let's call it, think about in a single moment before it starts to really degrade in quality. That's about 1,000 pages. Maybe if you're lucky, you can get up to a few thousand pages worth of information. Your brain, my brain, is incredible. We're routing to the piece of information we need. Like imagine a library. Our brains know like, okay, we got to go upstairs to that row on that shelf, and it just goes and does it. We don't even think about it. The LLM doesn't know how to do that. So it just looks, it pulls a bunch of books and goes, oh, I hope it's in here. And that could be really wrong. And it also isn't going to know, like, did a new law supersede that law? Did a new ruling come out from the Supreme Court that changed everything? Like, imagine the Voting Rights Act right now. If you looked up voting rights, you were trying to ask ChatGPT about voting rights, it would have a lot of information that it's trained on that's just now outdated because the Supreme Court just changed everything. So if you're looking for legal advice around the Voting Rights Act, it's outdated. It's not worth it. In fact, it's worse for you to go to ChatGPT because it will tell you the wrong thing. And with healthcare, it's the same problem. I mean, if there's some kind of new bad interaction between two pharmaceutical drugs, and that was just found out recently. If you go and ask, hey, does such and such drug, interact poorly with this other one, you might get very dangerous, bad advice. And unfortunately, even when it comes to the note takers in medical settings, they've had a lot of problems because an accent might throw off the audio transcription or the transcription. There may just be, some side noise, someone like hit the side of the chair. Like there's lots of reasons why it can go wrong. And sometimes it just gets it wrong anyway. And if your diagnosis is like 180 degrees different, like a positive was a negative or a negative was a positive, the indication medically is now wrong in a very potentially dangerous way. And unfortunately, people, when the computer says so, they tend to trust it even when they shouldn't.
When the computer says so, we tend to trust it even when we shouldn't. Aram, this has been a dynamic conversation. I will. My closing question is this: how will large language models, how will these AI platforms affect our democracy in 2026?
Ooh, save the easy one for last, huh? Okay. So, because I'm talking to the digital director, the ability for people to put out way more social posts is gone way up, right? So there's going to be more slop that's out there, and it's going to be more convincing than ever. They can take a voice, even just 10, 12 words of someone's voice, and make that voice say anything. And they can even create an animated version of you. So those deep fakes have gotten better and better, and better in the sense of more convincing. And that's a problem. I think probably the most important thing is that our sense of what's true, what's authoritative, what's authentic is being undermined. I think that we can look at things that have they look kind of right and authentic and real, but they're just not. There was a thing with what's the name of the mayor of New York, Adams, where he was speaking other languages, and people thought he spoke the language, so they went up to him and started speaking Mandarin or whatever, and he's like, I don't actually speak Mandarin. But these Chinese people, were convinced that he spoke their language. That is undermining our sense of what's real. So we need to find those like tent poles, those experiences, ideally face-to-face kinds of experiences that we can rely on, that we find voices that we know aren't going to lie to us. But right now, I'm afraid we're in a 2 to 4 year period, hopefully just 2 to 4 year period, where people are going to be very disoriented because they can't tell what's true and what's fake. And it's very unsettling. It's very hard to know how to act when you don't know if the information you're receiving is good or bad. And even worse, you might find that information is you thought was right, like you depended on it, and it turned out it was wrong. And I think that's part of why we're in this very anti-institutional moment, and it continues to get worse, is because who do we trust? So if you can prove that you're someone who is trustworthy, I think you're going to have a much more influence. And I think you're going to see a lot of politicians leaning in that direction, and a lot of political actors, whether it's voters or campaign managers or digital directors, really trying to capture that trust as much as they possibly can. And that comes back to very, very human understanding, sympathies, approaches. So I think that's kind of like the path forward, I would say, is if you want to win the AI moment, actually lean into your human excellence and just let the robots serve that rather than the other way around.
We need to come back to trust. I think trust is at the foundation of all of this. And as we look to trust our institutions, or are not trusting our institutions, as now we have these platforms that have been integrated into our daily life, whether we like it or not, that we're almost implicitly trusting, and we need to challenge that trust. And all while, and we hear this often in elections, but this is shaping up to definitely be one of the most important midterms in recent memory. Who can we trust to protect us, and who can we trust to who in this environment can we trust to really represent our people? Because we're at such an inflection point right now. This feels like an internet moment, if not more, if not bigger. This feels like the nuclear bomb being created. This feels like a moment of mass change and inflection, not just in America, but in human history. But I'm glad smart people like you, smart companies like Change Agent AI, are out here building responsible tech, responsible civic tech. You heard it here first. Within 3 to 4 years at the latest, everybody will have their own large language model.
I hope so. I hope so. Or just come to Change Agent. We'll take care of you if you're in the
where can
space.
people find you?
You can find us at the Change.ai.
The Change.ai.
The Change.ai. That's right. And you can sign up there. We've got boot camps to train people how to get good at this, get to that level of AI proficiency that I think everyone should be at. And you can learn more about, our ethics, our approach, who we serve, how we serve them. And I'm a pretty active LinkedIn poster as well. So if you're on LinkedIn, you can just find me at Aram Fischer. I'm there.
Yeah. All right. And this is, once again, this is the collaboration of Hip Politics Podcast and the Digital Directors Playbook. Make sure you join and subscribe to the Digital Director Playbook.com for our weekly newsletter, as well as our Digital Directors Playbook on Substack. And then, of course, like, subscribe, share, tell a friend, and even an enemy about Hip Politics Podcast. This is we're in season 5 here live from Philadelphia at NetRoots Nation Conference. This is again your boy, your host, your digital director, your man between hip hop and politics, Mr. Cameron Calvin, aka Mr. 216 to the 202. This has been another episode, and like that, we're out. Peace.
Thank you.